The woman left on the track for being pregnant. But this happens. Halfway through, her bare feet were sinking into the blazing red dust of the track. Each step was a broken promise, an echo of the slammed door that had just sealed her fate. Jasmine, 8 months pregnant, clutched the worn fabric of her dress over her belly as the late afternoon sun bore down on her shoulders like lead. She had been thrown out of the only home she had ever known, abandoned by her own flesh and blood. But what Jasmine didn't know, as she trudged towards nowhere, was that on this very dirt track, a storm was brewing, not in the sky, but within her, and a rusty, dusty ute was about to change everything. Subscribe to our channel, Written Moments, so you don't miss incredible stories like this one. We want to know where you're joining us from. Tell us what city you're listening to this story from. The silence of the countryside was heavy, broken only by Jasmine's choked sobs and the buzzing of insects under the scorching sun of outback Queensland. Just an hour ago, her father, Donovan, had screamed the words that would mark her life forever. "Get out of my house! I never want to see you again! You are not my daughter!" Donovan's voice had reverberated through the small yard, hard as stone. Jasmine had pleaded, gripping the wooden doorframe, but her father wouldn't budge. The image of her stepmother, Trish, watching from the window with a look of smug satisfaction, was seared into her memory. Trish had never liked her, and the pregnancy was the perfect excuse. "It's a disgrace, Donovan. What will the neighbors say? A bastard child under your roof," she had hissed the night before, venomous whispers that Jasmine could hear from her room. Donovan, a man consumed by pride in what people thought, had made his decision. Jasmine tried to argue, to talk about Lachlan, the baby's father, but her father slapped her before she could finish. "Lachlan abandoned you just like I'm abandoning you now. I want nothing to do with that kid." Jasmine's tears dried almost instantly on her hot cheeks. It wasn't just the sun that was burning her, it was the betrayal. She had worked in that house since she was a little tacker, looking after her half-siblings, cleaning the floor she was no longer allowed to walk on. Her mother, who had passed away 10 years ago, had told her Donovan was a good man, just broken inside. But Jasmine saw nothing good now. She only saw the back of a man who had erased her from his life without a shred of pity. She walked aimlessly, the sun beating directly into her face. The dirt track stretched for kilometers and kilometers, a brown ribbon winding between the dry paddocks. She carried no water, no food, and not a single dollar. She only had the clothes on her back and the baby who stirred restlessly in her womb, as if sensing that something was terribly wrong. Where would she go? The nearest town was more than 20 kilometers away. She knew no one there. Lachlan had gone to the mines 3 months ago, promising to return for her. Lachlan's promises were all she had, and now they seemed as hollow as the cloudless sky. "I'll write to you, Jazz. As soon as I'm settled, I'll send for you and our boy. We'll be a family," he'd told her on their last night together under the old gum tree. But the letters never arrived, only rumors brought by a distant cousin that Lachlan had been seen in Perth with another woman. Jasmine had refused to believe it, until today. Today, reality hit her with the force of a train. Every step was an effort. The simple rough cotton dress stuck to her sweating body. Her feet, accustomed to the worn thongs her father had thrown into the fire, protested against the gravel and thorns. She looked back one last time. The small mud brick house, with its faded blue window frames, was just a smudge in the distance. It was her past, a past that had spat her out. Now, only the future remained, and it looked as desolate as the landscape around her. Fear was a cold knot in her throat. She wasn't afraid for herself, but for the innocent life she carried. "Forgive me, my love," she whispered, touching her swollen belly. "I don't know what we'll do. I don't know where we'll sleep tonight, but I swear I will protect you. Even if it's the last thing I do in this life, I will protect you." It was a promise made to the wind, but it was the only thing she had left to cling to as she kept walking into the unknown. The sun began to set, painting the sky in oranges and purples, but it brought no relief. The heat of the day still radiated from the dry earth. Jasmine estimated she had been walking for at least 3 hours. Her legs trembled from the effort and the lack of water. The thirst was torture. Her mouth was dry and pasty, and every breath was difficult. She stopped for a moment, leaning against a post of the barbed wire fence that bordered the track. The metal was hot. She looked at her feet. They were covered in dust and small bleeding cuts. She closed her eyes and remembered her last conversation with Lachlan. It was at the local show. He had bought her fairy floss and talked about his dreams. "Up north, Jazz, life is different. You earn big dollars. We can buy our own patch of dirt, not live under your dad's roof." He always knew how to talk to her. Lachlan was a good-looking bloke, with bright eyes and an easy smile that disarmed her. She, who had never received much attention, fell head over heels for him. She gave him everything she had, her innocence, her trust. "Your dad will never accept me, Jazz. I'm poor. I don't own land," he had told her. "But if we show him we love each other, that we're going to start a family." It was Lachlan's idea to have the baby. Jasmine, in her naivety, thought a grandchild would soften Donovan's heart. How wrong she was. When her belly started to swell and Lachlan was gone, the looks in the town turned into daggers. Women muttered at the local servo. Her stepmother, Trish, smiled. Trish had been the worst. "Donovan, that girl is a total embarrassment. People are saying she doesn't even know who the father is. They say she slept with just anyone passing through." They were cruel lies. Trish wanted Jasmine out of the house so her own kids, the 2 boys she had with Donovan, would inherit everything. Donovan's small block of land was the only thing of value they owned, and Trish wasn't planning on sharing it with the first wife's daughter. Jasmine wiped the sweat from her brow with the back of her hand. The baby moved abruptly, a sharp kick beneath her ribs that made her gasp. "Easy, my darling, nearly there. We'll get somewhere soon." But where? The road was still empty. Not a single car, not a wagon had passed. She was alone, completely alone. Panic began to rise in her chest, cold and paralyzing. What if I give birth right here, in the middle of nowhere, like an animal? She forced herself to take one more step, and then another. Desperation gave her a strength she didn't know she possessed. She thought of her mother. She remembered her kind face, her soft hands, telling her stories before bed. "You are strong, my Jasmine, stronger than the dry earth. You always bloom," she used to say. Jasmine clung to that memory. She had to be strong. She had to bloom, even here, in the driest, most desolate place in her life. She couldn't go back. Even if she begged, if she knelt, the door to her house was closed forever. Donovan was a man of his word, and his word had been, "Get out." Jasmine felt a surge of rage mixed with the pain. Rage against Lachlan for abandoning her, against Trish for poisoning her father, and against her father for being so weak, so spineless, so enslaved by pride. "They don't deserve me," she thought. "My son and I don't deserve them. We'll make it." The twilight was advancing fast, dyeing the world a deep, cold blue. The heat of the day disappeared abruptly, giving way to the cool desert air that chilled her to the bone. Jasmine hugged herself, but her thin dress offered little protection. The trembling in her legs was no longer just from tiredness, but also from the cold. The road had become harder to see in the gloom. She tripped over a loose rock and fell to her knees. The pain was sharp, stabbing. She cried out more from frustration than from pain. The tears welled up again, hot and bitter. She rested her forehead on the dusty ground and wept. She cried for her dead mother, for the father who had betrayed her, for the man who had lied to her, and for the innocent baby who didn't deserve to be born like this. "Why?" she sobbed to the darkening sky. "Why me? What have I done to deserve this? I only wanted to love. I only wanted a family." Silence was her only answer. Suddenly, a sharp, deep pain shot through her. It wasn't like the baby's movements. It was different, a low pain in her back and belly that made her hold her breath. It lasted a few seconds and then faded. Jasmine lay motionless, paralyzed by fear. Was that a contraction? No, it was too soon. She was at least 3 weeks away. The town doctor had told her the baby would be born at the end of the month. She got up with difficulty, supporting herself on her trembling hands. The dust had stuck to the tears and the blood on her knees. She looked around. She was in absolute nowhere. In the distance, the lights of a small sheep station twinkled, but they seemed miles away across a fenced paddock. She didn't have the strength to leave the track, to climb fences. She had to keep going. Maybe she would reach the main highway where she could ask for help. As she kept walking, the pain returned. This time stronger, longer. Jasmine had to stop and gasp. "No, please, not now. Hold on a little longer, my love. Please, hold on." The reality of her situation hit her again. She was alone, on a dark road with no help and possibly going into labor. The terror was so intense it took her breath away. She had to find help, and fast. The road seemed endless. Every shadow of a bush looked like a threat. The howl of a dingo in the distance chilled her blood. She had never been so scared in her life. "Dear Mom, help me," she prayed quietly. "Send me a sign. Send me someone. Don't let me die here." She gritted her teeth and kept going. one painful step at a time, as the contractions began to take a rhythm of their own, slow but unstoppable. The moon rose, a pale half-moon casting a ghostly light over the landscape. It lit the track enough to see the rocks and potholes. Jasmine was grateful for that small mercy. But the light also showed her how empty the road was. There was no one, only her baby, and the pain that grew with every passing minute. Desperation was a dark pit that threatened to swallow her. The pain intensified, becoming a tide that rose and fell, each wave stronger than the last. Jasmine could no longer walk when they came. She had to stop, lean forward, and breathe raggedly, trying not to scream to conserve her dwindling energy. Fear had turned into an animal urgency. She no longer thought of her father or Lachlan. She only thought of surviving. She only thought of protecting her son. The maternal instinct was stronger than any betrayal. She estimated the contractions were coming every 15 minutes. She still had time, but time was running against her. The cold was now her enemy. She was shivering uncontrollably. She knew if she gave birth there on the cold ground, the baby wouldn't survive the night. She needed shelter. She needed fire. She needed water. She needed everything she didn't have. She started crying again, this time silently, tears of pure helplessness. It was then she heard it, a low, distant hum slowly growing louder. At first she thought it was the wind or her own blood pounding in her ears. But no, it was an engine, a vehicle. She looked back and saw two round yellow lights approaching slowly down the same track she had traveled. Her heart leaped. Was it help or was it danger? On these desolate tracks, a car at night could be anything. Her first instinct was to hide. She crawled towards the ditch at the edge of the road, among the dry, thorny bushes. The branches scratched her face and arms, but she didn't care. She stayed still, holding her breath, watching the lights approach. It was an old, beat-up ute, struggling over the uneven terrain. She could hear the rattling of the engine. Fear paralyzed her. What if they were crooks or bad people? But then, another contraction hit her, stronger than all the previous ones. A sharp groan escaped her lips despite her efforts to suppress it. It was a mournful, almost animal sound. The ute, which was almost level with her, braked abruptly. The headlights pinned her in the ditch, illuminating her completely. Jasmine was exposed, huddled, her face covered in tears and dust, her eyes wide with terror. The driver's door opened with a metallic screech. A man's silhouette climbed out. Jasmine closed her eyes, expecting the worst. She heard slow footsteps approaching. "Please don't hurt me," she whispered, her voice broken. I'm pregnant, please." The silence that followed was terrifying. She only heard her own frantic heartbeat. Suddenly, a woman's voice, firm but not unkind, shouted from the passenger seat, "Barry, what are you waiting for? Can't you see she's in pain? Help her." A woman got out of the ute. She quickly approached the ditch. Jasmine opened her eyes and saw a face in her 50s, lined with wrinkles, but with kind eyes. The woman wore a worn akubra and looked at her with a mixture of surprise and compassion. "Goodness me, Darl, what are you doing dumped out here?" said the woman, kneeling beside her without minding the thorns. Her name was Cheryl. Her voice was rough but warm. Jasmine tried to speak, but fear and pain held her captive. They kicked me out. My father." She couldn't continue. Another contraction shook her, and this time she let out a wrenching scream that cut through the silence of the night. Cheryl needed no more explanation. Cheryl looked at Jasmine's belly, then at her bare, bleeding feet, her eyes filled with quiet fury. "There are some heartless people in this world," she muttered. Then she yelled at the man who was still standing next to the ute. "Barry, for goodness sake, don't just stand there. This girl is in labor. We have to get her to the house." Barry, a tall, thin man with a worn hat, approached cautiously. "Cheryl, calm down. We don't know who she is. She could be trouble," Barry said, his voice low and suspicious. He looked at Jasmine as if she were a wounded animal, unpredictable. In these times, you can't trust anyone. Jasmine saw the doubt in his eyes and felt a fresh wave of despair. If they left her here, she would die. "Please, mister," she pleaded. "I have nothing. I just want to save my baby. I won't hurt you, I swear." Cheryl glared at her husband. "Look at her eyes, Barry. Do you see danger there? I see terror. I see a girl who needs help. Are we going to leave her here for the dingoes? Is that what you want on your conscience?" Barry sighed, running a hand over his face. He knew his wife. Once Cheryl made up her mind, there was no stopping her. All right. Lift her up. But be quick. I don't like standing out here in the dark." Cheryl smiled softly at Jasmine. "Come on, love. We'll help you. Carefully." Between Cheryl and Barry, they lifted Jasmine. She cried out when they moved her. The pain was intense. They helped her into the back cab of the ute. It was a small space. It smelled of feed and engine oil, but it was the safest refuge she'd had all day. Cheryl climbed in with her, sitting beside her and resting Jasmine's head in her lap. "Easy, my girl. Breathe. You're safe now," Cheryl told her, stroking her sweaty, tangled hair. Jasmine had never felt such a motherly touch, not even from her stepmother, and she barely remembered her own mother's. She clung to Cheryl's hand as if it were a lifeline. "My name is Jasmine," she whispered. Thank you so much." Cheryl squeezed her hand. "I'm Cheryl, and that grumpy old sod is Barry. Now rest, we're almost home." The ute started up again, moving slowly along the bumpy track. Every jolt was a new torture for Jasmine, but Cheryl held her firmly. "Breathe deep, Jasmine, like you're smelling a flower. That's it. Hold on, we're nearly there." Jasmine closed her eyes, exhausted. She didn't know who these people were or where they were taking her. She only knew that, for the first time on that hellish day, she wasn't alone. The ride in the ute was short, perhaps 10 minutes, but to Jasmine, it felt like an eternity. The vehicle turned off the main track and entered a rickety wooden gate. They drove along an even rougher path until the lights illuminated a small house. It was humble, made of unpainted cement blocks with a tin roof, but it looked solid. A couple of dogs ran out barking, but quieted when they recognized the ute. Barry parked next to a small veranda. "We're here," Barry announced, switching off the engine. Silence fell again, but this time it was a different silence, the silence of a home. "Cheryl, how do we get her out?" Cheryl was already opening the door. "Carefully, you goose, carefully. Jasmine, lean on me. We'll get you inside." Jasmine felt another contraction as she tried to climb out. She doubled over in pain, clutching the door frame. "I can't. It hurts too much." "Yes, you can, love. You're strong. Come on, one step at a time," Cheryl encouraged her. With Barry on one side and Cheryl on the other, they practically carried Jasmine the few meters to the house. The front door opened directly into a room that served as a lounge and kitchen. It was dimly lit by a single globe hanging from the ceiling. There was a wooden table, a couple of chairs, and an old sofa covered with a colorful blanket. The place smelled of coffee and burnt wood. "Put her on our bed, Barry. It's the only clean one we've got," Cheryl ordered. Barry, though still looking worried, obeyed without question. They guided Jasmine through a short hallway to a small room. The bed was old, metal-framed, but the mattress was covered with clean, patched sheets. They gently laid her down. Jasmine sighed with relief, feeling the relative softness of the mattress beneath her aching back. "Now," Cheryl said, switching into work mode, "Barry, hot water, and bring the clean towels from the cupboard, the ones I told you not to use, and the herbal first aid kit." Barry rushed out of the room. Cheryl turned to Jasmine, her face serious but reassuring. "Listen to me, Jasmine. I've brought my 4 kids and most of my grandkids into the world. I know what I'm doing, but I need you to be brave. Understood?" Jasmine nodded, trembling with fear and cold. "Yes, ma'am, but it's too soon. I've still got 3 weeks. Cheryl clicked her tongue. "Babies are born when they want to be born, not when the calendar says, and this one seems to be in a hurry. The shock and the walk have woken him up." Cheryl began to gently lift Jasmine's worn dress to examine her. Jasmine felt ashamed of her state, her dirty clothes, but Cheryl didn't seem to notice. "It's all good. You're dilating," Cheryl said in a low voice, more to herself. "This is going to be quick, I reckon." Barry came in with a basin of steaming water and a pile of clean white towels. He placed them on an old chest of drawers. "Here it is, Cheryl. Are you sure about this? The town hospital?" Cheryl cut him off. "No time for the hospital, Barry. The baby will be born here. Now get out and wait and pray. This is a woman's business." Barry left the room, closing the door softly behind him. Jasmine heard his nervous footsteps in the lounge. She was left alone with Cheryl. The older woman moved with a quiet efficiency, wetting a towel in the hot water and beginning to clean Jasmine's face, wiping away the dust and dried tears. The contact was incredibly comforting. "First, we'll clean you up a bit. You'll feel better." As she worked, Cheryl talked. Her voice was a constant murmur that helped Jasmine anchor her mind. "Don't be scared, love. A woman's body knows what to do. It's a strong pain, yeah, the strongest pain there is. But it's a pain that brings life, not a pain of death. Remember that. Every time it hurts, you're closer to seeing your baby." Cheryl's words were a balm to Jasmine's panic. "Why? Why are you helping me?" Jasmine whispered as another contraction began to build. "You don't even know me." Cheryl stopped and looked at her intently. Her dark eyes seemed to hold a deep sadness. Many years ago, I was alone too. Not on a road, but alone in my heart. People can be very cruel, and if we can put a bit of kindness into the world to balance the badness, we have to do it. Today it was my turn. Tomorrow it will be yours. Jasmine didn't fully understand her words, but she felt the truth in them. The pain became unbearable. She arched her back on the bed, biting her lip to keep from screaming. "Breathe, Jasmine, breathe," Cheryl ordered her. "Don't fight the pain. Use it. Push with it." Jasmine obeyed. She put all her strength, all her rage, all her fear into that effort. Sweat ran down her face, soaking the pillow. Between contractions, exhaustion overwhelmed her. She felt adrift, floating in a sea of pain. "I can't," she whimpered. "I'm too tired. I have no strength." Cheryl put a cool cloth on her forehead. "Of course you have strength. You're a mother. Mothers always find strength where they think there's none left. Think of your baby. Think of his face. Fight for him, Jasmine. Fight." The image of her baby, a small, undefined face, appeared in her mind. A baby who had no one but her. A baby who had been rejected by his grandfather and abandoned by his father. No, Cheryl was right. She was all that child had. She had to fight. She found a new reserve of determination. She squeezed Cheryl's hand so hard that her knuckles turned white. "Almost there," Cheryl said, her voice tight with concentration. "I can see the head. One more, Jasmine. One more with all your might. Now!" Jasmine inhaled deeply and pushed with a scream that seemed to tear the night. It was a superhuman effort, a pain that split her in two, followed by a sudden feeling of relief, of emptiness. And then, in the silence that followed, came the most beautiful sound in the world, the strong, healthy cry of a newborn. "It's a boy! A strong little tacker!" Cheryl exclaimed, her face lit up by a smile. She lifted the baby, small and covered, but moving vigorously. Tears sprang from Jasmine's eyes, this time tears of relief and a joy so intense it hurt. "My baby, is he all right? Is he whole?" Cheryl laughed. "He's perfect, love, more than perfect. He has your eyes." With expert hands, Cheryl cleaned the baby and wrapped him in one of the clean, soft white towels. She handed him to Jasmine. Jasmine took him with trembling hands. She brought him to her chest. The baby stopped crying almost instantly, instinctively seeking his mother's warmth. He was so small, so vulnerable. His dark, damp hair was stuck to his tiny head. He opened his eyes and looked at her, or so it seemed to Jasmine. In that instant, all the pain, all the betrayal, all the fear of the day disappeared. Only the two of them existed. "Hello, my love," Jasmine whispered to him, crying and laughing at the same time. "Hello, my brave one. We made it. We're safe." She kissed his tiny forehead. She felt a wave of love so powerful it took her breath away. This little being was hers. No one could take him away. For him, she would face anything. "I'll call him Finn," she decided right then, "because that's what he is, an angel sent to save me." Cheryl worked in silence for a few minutes, finishing up caring for Jasmine. Her touch was professional and respectful. "You did a marvelous job, Jasmine. You are a strong mother." Jasmine looked at her, her eyes full of a gratitude that words couldn't express. You saved me. You saved my son. I can never repay you." Cheryl shook her head, gathering the dirty sheets. "The payment is seeing this healthy boy. Now rest. You need it. You've been through a lot." Cheryl opened the door and called out to Barry. "Barry, you can come in now. Bring some hot broth for Jasmine and bring Brad's old cot." Barry came in, respectfully taking off his hat. He looked at the baby in Jasmine's arms, and his eyes, previously suspicious, softened noticeably. "Congratulations, Darl. He's a bonny little boy." "He's called Finn," Jasmine said, unable to stop smiling. Barry nodded with a small smile. "Finn is a good name. Welcome to the world, Finn." He left and returned moments later with a small wooden cot worn from use, but clean. They placed it next to Jasmine's bed. Cheryl helped Jasmine settle the baby in the cot. Finn fell asleep almost immediately. Jasmine leaned back against the clean pillows. The exhaustion was total, but she also felt a peace she had never experienced before. Cheryl brought her a mug of hot chicken broth. "Drink this, it'll give you strength." Jasmine drank slowly. The warm broth comforted her from the inside out. She looked at Cheryl, this stranger who had become her savior. "Why are you so good to me, Cheryl?" Cheryl sat down on a chair next to the bed. Cheryl sighed, her gaze lost in the small cot. "I told you I was alone once too," she began quietly. "But I didn't tell you everything. 30 years ago, I was in your spot, not pregnant, but running. Running from a bad man, my first husband. He used to hit me. One night I escaped with only the clothes I stood up in. I walked for hours. I thought I was going to die. The room fell silent. Only the baby's gentle breathing could be heard. No one helped me, Cheryl continued, her voice breaking slightly. People closed their doors. They looked at me with fear or contempt. Finally, an old woman, a healer who lived alone in the hills, gave me shelter. She looked after me. She taught me to heal with herbs. She taught me to be strong. She saved my life. Jasmine listened intently, seeing the old pain on Cheryl's face. When she died, she left me this house, and I made a promise to her and to God. I swore that this door would never be closed to anyone who needed it, especially a woman who was alone and scared. Cheryl looked at Jasmine. When I saw you in that ditch, I saw my own reflection from 30 years ago. Helping you wasn't a choice, Jasmine. It was an obligation. It was paying the debt I owed to life. Jasmine was speechless. The generosity of this woman was overwhelming. Cheryl put a finger to her lips. Don't say anything. Sleep. We'll talk tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a new day. No one will hurt you here. Barry looks grumpy, but he has a heart of gold. You'll be fine. Cheryl got up, gave Finn one last look, and turned off the light, leaving only a small oil lamp burning in the corner. Jasmine lay in the gloom, listening to the sounds of the house. She heard Cheryl and Barry whispering in the lounge. She's very weak, Barry, and the father seems to have left her. Donovan is a fool. Always was. Pride blinded him, Barry replied. Jasmine was surprised. You know my father? We know him by sight from the market. A man who yells a lot and pays poorly, Barry dismissed. Exhaustion finally overcame Jasmine. She sank into the mattress, feeling safe for the first time in months. Despite the pain in her body, despite the uncertainty of her future, she felt a strange calm. She'd been expelled from her home, only to find another. She'd been abandoned by her own blood, only to be rescued by strangers. Life was a mystery. She closed her eyes, with her son's breathing as the sweetest music. She woke up hours later, startled. The room was dark. For a second, the panic returned. Where was she? Had it all been a dream? Then she heard Finn's soft whimper. She looked at the cot. There he was, stirring. It was real. She was safe. Cheryl had left a jug of water and a lamington on the bedside table. Jasmine drank the water eagerly. Nothing had ever tasted so good. The next morning, Jasmine woke to the sounds of an active farm. The crowing of a rooster, Barry's murmur giving orders to someone outside, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee. She felt sore, bruised, but alive. Finn was still sleeping soundly. Cheryl entered the room smiling. Good morning, Mum. How are you feeling? Jasmine smiled. Sore, but happy. I don't know how to thank you. There's nothing to thank me for. Breakfast is ready. Do you think you can get up? With Cheryl's help, Jasmine sat up in bed. She felt weak but determined. Cheryl brought her clean clothes, a simple cotton dress that had belonged to her daughter. My daughter lives in the city. She won't mind, Cheryl said. Jasmine changed, feeling human again as she shed the dirty rags. Cheryl helped her walk to the kitchen. The kitchen was the heart of the house. Barry was sitting at the table, drinking coffee. When he saw Jasmine, he nodded. G'day, Darl. Sit down. Cheryl served her a large plate of eggs with bacon and hot baked beans, with homemade damper. Jasmine hadn't eaten anything decent in days. She ate with tears in her eyes, grateful for every bite. Eat up, eat up. You need to regain strength for two, Barry told her. While she ate, they talked. What are you planning to do now, Jasmine? Barry asked. His tone was practical, not cruel. Jasmine looked down. I don't know. I have nowhere to go. I have no money. Lachlan, the father of my son, went up north. Cheryl and Barry exchanged a look. We know about Lachlan, Cheryl said softly. He left months ago, and the rumors are he's not planning to come back. I don't want to give you false hope, love. Jasmine's heart sank, though a part of her already knew. So I'm alone. You're not alone, Cheryl said, placing her hand over Jasmine's. You can stay here as long as you need. We're not rich. What you see is what we have, but there's a roof, there's Tucker, and there's work. Barry needs help on the farm, and I need help in the house, especially now that my hands aren't so nimble. Jasmine looked up, surprised. Are you serious? You'd let me stay? Barry cleared his throat. Cheryl's already decided, and I agree. But it won't be for free. Everyone works here. As soon as you recover from the birth, you'll have to earn your keep, and you'll have to follow our rules. We're decent people. We don't want any trouble. Jasmine nodded vigorously, hope flooding her chest. Yes, sir, I'll work. I'll do anything. I'll clean, I'll cook, I'll help with the animals. I'm strong. We'll see about that, Barry said, but his eyes smiled. Cheryl served her more coffee. For now, your only job is to look after that baby and recover. We have a small room out the back. It was my son's. It's small, but it's yours. You can have your privacy. Jasmine couldn't believe it. Yesterday she was dying on a track, and today she had a home, an improvised family, and an opportunity. Thank you. God bless you. I won't let you down. Cheryl smiled. We know you won't. Now finish your breakfast. You have to feed Finn. Jasmine returned to her room feeling an enormous weight lift from her shoulders. It wasn't the ending she had dreamed of with Lachlan, but it was a start. A difficult start, yes, but it was hers. She looked at her son sleeping in the cot. We're going to be all right, Finn, she whispered to him. We're going to have a life, I promise you. The weeks passed. Jasmine recovered quickly, driven by the need to be useful and by the unconditional love for Finn. The small back room became her sanctuary. It was austere, with barely a bed, Finn's cot, and a wooden box as a wardrobe, but it was hers. For the first time in her life, no one was yelling at her. No one was looking at her with contempt. Cheryl became the mother figure she never had, teaching her to care for Finn, to cook the station recipes, and to identify the medicinal herbs that grew in the hills. Jasmine learned fast. Her hands, although young, were accustomed to hard work. She got up before dawn, prepared coffee for Barry, helped milk the few cows they had, and then took care of the house while Finn slept in a sling tied to her back. Barry, initially distant, began to look out for her with silent respect. He watched her work without complaining, from sunrise to sunset. She repaired the fences, cleaned the yards, and kept the house spotless. One day, while hanging the washed clothes on the line, she heard Barry talking to Cheryl in the kitchen. That girl works harder than my two boys put together, Barry said. His voice sounded impressed. She's got good hands for planting and she hasn't brought any trouble, Cheryl replied. I told you, Barry, she's a good kid. Life just treated her badly, that's all. She's like the daughter I always wanted to have close. Jasmine felt her heart swell with warmth. It wasn't all peace. The nights were difficult. When Finn cried, fear invaded her. Fear of not being enough, of something bad happening. And then there was Lachlan's ghost. Sometimes she looked at Finn's face trying to find some trace of him. But the baby looked more like her. Lachlan's betrayal was an open wound, although Cheryl and Barry's kindness was helping it heal. She had decided never to trust a man again. One afternoon, Cheryl sat with her on the veranda as the sun set. You're thinking about him, aren't you? Finn's father. Jasmine nodded, without looking up from the knitting she was learning to do. Sometimes I wonder how he could. How could he promise me a family and then vanish? Cheryl sighed. Men can be cowards, Jasmine, especially when faced with responsibility, but his cowardice doesn't define you. But I feel silly. I was so blind, Jasmine whispered. You weren't silly, you were young and you had faith, Cheryl corrected her firmly. And don't let that mistake sour your heart. You're a mother now. Your heart belongs to that child and to yourself. Don't let anyone make you feel less than what you're worth. You're worth more than the man who abandoned you and the father who kicked you out. Those words stayed with Jasmine. You're worth more. She repeated it in her mind as she worked. She began to walk with her head held higher. She was no longer the scared girl who had crawled to that house. She was Jasmine, Finn's mother, a tireless worker. She was building a life, piece by piece, with her own hands, and although the future was uncertain, she was no longer afraid of it. 5 years passed. Cheryl and Barry's farm prospered modestly. With Jasmine's help, the small market garden became a source of income. They sold fresh cheese, eggs, and vegetables at the market in the nearby town. Jasmine had become an expert at managing the money. She saved every dollar she earned, keeping it in a small metal box under her mattress. Her goal was clear. One day to buy a small piece of land of her own, a place where Finn could grow up safe. Finn was a bright, lively boy. He ran around the farm chasing chooks, his dark hair tousled and the same easy smile his father had. This sometimes caused a dull ache in Jasmine's chest. But Finn was all kindness. He adored Barry, whom he called Grandpa Baza, and followed Cheryl everywhere, calling her Nan. To them, Jasmine was Mum Jas. They had become the only family he knew. One day, while they were at the market, Jasmine felt a fixed stare on her. She looked up and her blood ran cold. It was Trish, her stepmother. They hadn't seen each other since the day she was thrown out. Trish was older, her face marked by bitterness. She was buying chilies at the stall opposite. When her eyes met Jasmine's, her expression went from surprise to pure disdain. She looked at Finn, who was hiding behind Jasmine's skirt. "Well, well, so the stray is still alive," Trish said, her voice dripping venom. "And with the bastard, too. I thought the dingoes would have eaten you long ago." Jasmine felt the blood rush to her face. She squeezed Finn's hand. The Jasmine of 5 years ago would have cowered, would have cried. But this Jasmine was different. "Good day, Trish. What a surprise to see you." Her voice was cold, calm. Trish laughed, an unpleasant sound. "Still as insolent. What are you doing here? Begging or selling? Other services?" Cheryl, who was packing boxes, came closer when she heard Trish's voice. "Is there a problem, madam?" Trish looked her up and down. "And who are you? The ringmaster of the circus?" Cheryl narrowed her eyes. "I'm Cheryl, and this is Jasmine, my assistant, and this is her son. I'd appreciate it if you spoke to them with respect." "Respect? To her?" Trish sneered. "She doesn't deserve respect. She's a disgrace. Ask her father. Donovan is dying, you know." Jasmine felt her heart flip. Her father. "What? What's wrong with him?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Trish smiled maliciously. "Oh, now you care. Pride is consuming him. Since you left, everything fell apart. The crops dried up. My son's left for the mines, just like your Lachlan. Now he's alone, sick and poor." "And you're here, spending the little money he has left," Barry interjected, approaching with a sack over his shoulder. His presence was imposing. Trish took a step back. "I look after my husband." "Sure you do," Barry said sarcastically. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we have customers to attend to, customers who actually pay." Trish glared at them, especially at Jasmine, and walked away muttering curses. Jasmine was left trembling, not from fear, but from a mix of rage and an unexpected pang of pain for her father. That night, Jasmine couldn't sleep. The news that her father was sick and alone tormented her. Despite everything, despite the cruelty, he was her father. She remembered moments from her childhood, before her mother died, when he would sit her on his knee and tell her stories of stars. Was it possible that this man was now alone, dying? Finn slept next to her, oblivious to the storm raging in his mother's heart. She got up and went out onto the veranda. The moon was full, bathing the farm in a silver light. Cheryl came out a moment later, as if she knew Jasmine would be there. She sat down next to her on the wooden step. "It's hard to hate a father, isn't it?" Cheryl said softly. Jasmine nodded, tears shimmering in her eyes. "He kicked me out, Cheryl. He left me to die. But I can't be happy about his misfortune. Am I an idiot?" "You're not an idiot. You're a human being with a good heart," Cheryl replied. "Blood is blood, Jasmine, and holding a grudge is a poison that only hurts the one who keeps it. What Trish said is probably true. Pride can destroy a man." Jasmine dried her tears. "She said my half-brothers left too. They left him alone with her. It's almost poetic justice." "Life has strange ways of collecting debts," Cheryl murmured. "Are you going to go and see him?" The question hung in the cold night air. Jasmine hadn't considered the possibility. Going back to that house, facing that man. "I can't," Jasmine said. "I'm scared of what he'll say, scared of Trish, and why would I go, just for him to humiliate me again?" "You wouldn't go for him, Jasmine. You'd go for you," Cheryl said, her voice firm. "You'd go to close that chapter, for him to see you, for him to see his grandson, for him to see the strong woman you've become. Not to ask him for anything, not to forgive him if you don't want to, but to free yourself so that pain doesn't follow you all your life. Sometimes the greatest victory is not forgetting, but facing what hurt us and proving that it no longer has power over us." Jasmine thought about those words for a long time. To free herself? The idea was tempting. For 5 years she had built a wall around her past. She had avoided her father's town. She had avoided talking about him. But the pain was still there, like a splinter under the skin. Maybe Cheryl was right. Maybe it was time to face Donovan's ghost. "I don't know, Cheryl. I have to think about it. I have to think about Finn," she finally said. "Of course, love. It's your decision. No one will judge you. Whatever you choose to do." Cheryl squeezed her shoulder and went back into the house. Jasmine stayed alone under the moon, the hardest decision of her life weighing on her shoulders. Should she return to the place where her nightmare began? Several days passed. Jasmine tried to stick to her routine, but the conversation with Cheryl and the encounter with Trish had reopened the wound. She watched Finn playing, so happy, so innocent, and wondered if she had the right to deny him knowing his grandfather, even if he was a cruel man. Was it her decision, or was it also part of Finn's story? She felt torn. Barry noticed her distraction. "Your head's somewhere else, Darl," he told her one afternoon while they were fixing a fence. Jasmine sighed. "It's my father. I can't stop thinking about what Trish said." Barry put down the hammer and looked at her. "Donovan was an idiot, but he's your father. I never knew mine. He died when I was a kid. Sometimes I wonder what I would have told him if I'd had the chance." "What would you say?" Jasmine asked. Barry shrugged. "I'm not one to tell you what to do, but I'll tell you one thing I learned. It's better to regret something you did than to live wondering what would have happened if. If you go, it might hurt you. If you don't go, it might haunt you forever. Think it through. You have to do what gives you peace." That night, Jasmine made a decision. She approached Cheryl and Barry as they were having dinner. "I'm going," she said, her voice firm. "I'm going to see my father, but I don't want to go alone. Could you take me? Just to the entrance of the town. And could you look after Finn while I go? I don't want him to see whatever I'm going to find there." Cheryl nodded immediately. "Of course, love. You're doing the right thing." Barry looked at her with approval. "We'll leave tomorrow at dawn. I'll take you in the ute." Jasmine felt a mix of terror and relief. The decision was made. She spent the night awake preparing a small bag with water and some food. And she also put the small metal box, her savings, at the bottom of the bag. She didn't know why, but she felt she should take it. The next morning, before the sun rose, Jasmine kissed Finn on the forehead. "Be a good boy for Nan, my love. Mum will be back soon." A half-asleep Finn hugged her. "Yes, Mum. I love you. And I love you, my life, more than anything." She left her son with Cheryl and got into the ute with Barry. The journey was silent. The sun was beginning to rise, dyeing the sky in the same colors as the day she had been kicked out. Barry dropped her off at the entrance to the dirt track that led to her father's house. "I'll wait for you here. Take as much time as you need. If things get ugly, just yell." Jasmine nodded, her throat dry with fear. "Thanks, Barry." She got out of the ute and started walking. It was the same track, but she wasn't the same woman. She walked in work boots, with money in her pocket, and with her head held high. She was no longer a victim. She was a survivor. The walk to her father's house seemed shorter this time. Or maybe it was her, walking with a purpose, not running away. Her heart pounded hard, a drum in her chest. What would she find? What would she say? She went over Cheryl's words in her mind. "You're not going for him, you're going for you." She clenched her fists and kept walking. The house came into sight, and her heart sank. It was run down. The blue paint on the windows was completely peeled off. The garden, which her mother had cared for so much, was dead, covered in dry weeds. One of the windows was broken and covered with cardboard. It looked like a ghost house. For a moment, Jasmine thought Trish had lied, that no one was there. But then she saw a thin column of smoke coming from the kitchen chimney. She took a deep breath and approached the front door, the same wooden door she had pleaded against. She hesitated for a second. Should she knock, or just turn around and leave? No. She had come this far. She had to finish it. She raised her hand and knocked 3 times. The knock sounded hollow, muffled. She waited. She heard a noise inside, a chair dragging. If this story has touched your heart so far, if you're feeling Jasmine's strength, leave your like and stay until the end, because what's about to happen behind that door is even more exciting. The door opened with a slow, painful creak. Trish appeared in the doorway. She looked 10 years older. Her hair was messy, her clothes dirty. When she saw Jasmine, her eyes widened in surprise and then filled with hatred. "You? What the hell are you doing here? Get lost. This is still my house." She tried to close the door, but Jasmine put her work boot in the frame, stopping her. "I came to see my father," Jasmine said, her voice calm but unwavering. "Get out of my way, Trish." Trish was stunned by her audacity. "How dare you? Do you come to mock us, to rub your good fortune in our faces?" Jasmine looked at her intently. "I didn't come to mock. I came to see Donovan. Where is he?" "It's none of your business where he is. He doesn't want to see you," Trish shouted, her voice high-pitched and desperate. "Get out or I'll call—" "Who are you going to call, Trish? Your sons who abandoned you? The neighbors who despise you?" The truth of Jasmine's words seemed to hit Trish, who took a step back. At that moment, a weak, raspy voice came from inside the house. "Trish, who are you fighting with? Is it the debt collector again? Tell them we have nothing." It was her father's voice. Jasmine shivered. She pushed Trish aside with a gentle but firm shove and walked into the house. The interior was worse than the exterior. Dark, dirty, it smelled of sickness and poverty. In an old armchair in the corner of the lounge, covered with dirty blankets, sat Donovan. Jasmine barely recognized him. The man in the armchair was a shadow of his former self. The proud, strong man who had kicked her out was now a frail, emaciated old man. His skin was grayish, clinging to his bones. A messy beard covered his sunken cheeks. He coughed, a dry, painful sound that shook his body. He looked up when Jasmine entered the room. His cloudy eyes took a moment to focus. When he recognized her, his eyes widened. Shock, fear, and something else, something that looked like shame, crossed his face. He tried to sit up. "You!" he whispered, his voice barely a croak. "Jasmine, is that you, or am I dreaming?" Jasmine stood in the middle of the lounge, her heart torn between pity and the resentment she still felt. "It's me, Dad," she said quietly. Trish rushed in behind her. "Donovan, tell her to go. We don't want her here. She came to mock." Donovan ignored her. His eyes didn't leave Jasmine. He looked her up and down. He saw her clean clothes, her sturdy boots, her healthy face. He saw a woman, not the girl he had expelled. "What? What do you want?" he asked with difficulty. Jasmine swallowed, trying to find her voice. "Is it true? Are you dying?" Donovan looked down, a gesture Jasmine had never seen him make. It was a gesture of defeat. "The doctor says it's my lungs, the fags and the sadness. Not much time left." Trish snorted. "It's your fault. If you hadn't left, he wouldn't have got depressed. You're killing him." Jasmine faced her. "No, Trish, you're killing him. The poison you fed him against me, you're swallowing it now. You isolated him from everyone. Your sons left. I left. And what are you left with? A sick man in a house that's falling apart. Enjoy your inheritance." Trish raised her hand to slap her, but Jasmine caught her wrist. Her grip was strong, the grip of a working woman. "Don't you ever put a hand on me again, ever!" Trish looked at her with hatred, but also with fear. She released her grip and stepped back. Jasmine turned to her father. He was looking at her with a strange expression, almost of admiration. "You're strong," he whispered. "You look like your mother." Those words, which once would have made her cry, now only caused a dull ache. "Too late to see that, Dad," Jasmine said. She walked closer to the armchair. Despite the dirt, she knelt beside him. "I hated you," she confessed, her voice trembling for the first time. "I hated you every day for 5 years. I hated you for kicking me out, for not defending me against her, for believing her lies. I hated you for making me walk down that track alone." Donovan closed his eyes, tears rolling down his sunken cheeks. "Forgive me, Jasmine. Forgive me, my daughter. I was blind, a proud fool." "Forgiveness isn't that easy, Dad," Jasmine said, her voice hardening again. "You know what I went through that night? You know I almost died, that my son almost died." Donovan opened his eyes, panic replacing shame. "Son, you had the baby?" Jasmine laughed without joy. "Yes, I had a son, a grandson you'll never know. He was born that very night on the floor of a stranger's house, strangers who had more compassion than my own blood." Donovan sobbed, a broken, pathetic sound. A grandson. A boy. He's called Finn, and he's the most wonderful boy in the world. He's smart, he's good, and he's happy. Without you. Without any of this." Jasmine stood up. She felt the air in that house was suffocating her. "I came to tell you this. I came for you to see that you didn't destroy me. I survived, and I'm happy." She couldn't finish the sentence. Trish, who had been watching in silence, saw her opportunity. "If you care so much, why don't you help us? Look at us. We don't even have enough to eat. You look fine. You have money. It's your obligation." Jasmine looked at her in disbelief. "My obligation? After what you did to me? You're mad." "He's your father. You owe him respect," Trish shouted. "I owed him respect and he owed me protection. We both failed," Jasmine said. She turned back to Donovan. He was looking at her with desperation. "Jasmine, please, not for me. For her. She's driving me mad. She doesn't look after me. She spends the little money I get. I'm in pain." It was the first time she had ever heard him beg. The mighty Donovan reduced to asking for help from the daughter he had dishonored. Jasmine fought back the wave of pity. No, she couldn't fall for that. She had come to free herself, not to be chained again. "I can't help you, Dad. I can't." "Of course you can," Trish insisted. "Give us money. We can buy medicine, food." Jasmine looked at the mess, the dirt. She knew any money she gave, Trish would spend on anything but medicine. She opened her bag. Her hands trembled as she pulled out the small metal box, her savings, the money for her land, Finn's future. She opened it. Inside was a considerable amount, saved dollar by dollar over 5 years. Trish looked at it with greedy eyes. Donovan also looked, but with hope. Jasmine took a wad of notes, a small part of the total, perhaps a tenth. She approached her father and put the money in his trembling hand. "This is all I will give you. It's not for you. It's for the memory of my mother, who loved this house. Use it to buy food, medicine, or give it to her to drink away. I don't care. This is the last time you'll see me." Donovan clung to the money in her hand. "Don't go. Stay. Bring the child." Jasmine gently pulled away from his grasp. "No, I can't, and I will never bring Finn here. This place is full of pain. He doesn't deserve to know this pain." She headed for the door. "Goodbye, Dad." Trish ran towards her, trying to see how much money was left in the box. "Wait, that's not enough. You owe us more. 5 years. Jasmine pushed her away. "I owe you nothing, Trish. And if you try to follow me or look for me, I swear I'll call the police. I don't know what for, but they'll find something." Trish backed away, scared by Jasmine's new determination. Jasmine left the house, closing the door behind her. She didn't look back. The morning sun hit her face, and she breathed deeply the fresh air, as if emerging from a tomb. She had done what she had to do. She didn't feel completely at peace, but she felt lighter. The knot of hatred in her chest had loosened. She walked down the dirt track, this time feeling the firm earth under her boots. She saw Barry's ute waiting for her. She burst into tears, but this time they were tears of liberation. She got into the ute. Barry looked at her, his kind eyes full of questions. "Well?" he asked softly. Jasmine dried her tears. "He's dying and she's a monster. I gave him some money and said goodbye." Barry nodded slowly. "You did what your heart told you to. That's what matters." He started the ute. "Let's go home, Darl. You've got a son waiting for you." The word home sounded beautiful to Jasmine. Not her father's mud brick house, but Cheryl and Barry's small farm, her true home. During the drive back, Jasmine looked out the window at the passing fields. When they arrived at the farm, Finn ran to meet her, shouting, "Mum! Mum!" Jasmine jumped out of the ute and hugged him with all her might, lifting him into the air. She buried her face in his hair, smelling his scent of sun and earth. "I missed you so much, my love," she whispered. "Me too, Mum. You're not sad anymore?" he asked, touching her still damp cheek. Jasmine smiled. "No, my love. I'm not sad anymore. Everything is all right." Cheryl was waiting on the veranda with a mug of hot coffee. "Are you all right, love?" Jasmine took the mug. "I'm all right, Cheryl. Thank you. Thank you for pushing me to do it. You were right. I feel free." Cheryl smiled back. "That's my girl. Now come on, let's have some food. Life goes on." And life went on. But something had changed in Jasmine. The shadow of her past no longer haunted her. She focused on her work with renewed energy. Her savings had decreased, but her determination hadn't. "I'll save it again," she told Cheryl. "It'll take me longer, but I'll do it. For Finn." Barry, impressed by her courage, offered her a small share of the market profits. "Not just a wage, you're a partner, Jasmine. You've earned it." The months turned into a year. Finn started attending the small rural school. Jasmine watched him leave every morning with his backpack, and her heart filled with pride. She was raising a good man, a man who wouldn't be like his father or his grandfather. He would be kind, respectful, and strong, like her. One afternoon, almost 2 years after her visit to her father's house, an unfamiliar car stopped in front of the farm. It wasn't Barry's ute. It was a newer car, although covered in dust. Jasmine, who was shelling corn on the veranda, stood up cautiously. Finn was playing nearby, and she instinctively called him. "Finn, come here, my love." A man got out of the car. He wasn't from the town. He wore jeans, R.M. Williams boots, and a shirt that was once expensive. He took off his hat, revealing dark hair and eyes that Jasmine recognized instantly, though they were now tired and marked by life. Her heart stopped. It was Lachlan. The man who had abandoned her, her son's father, was standing in front of her after 7 years. Lachlan looked at her, his eyes scanning her figure. Jasmine was no longer the skinny 19-year-old girl. She was a woman of 26, strong, with skin weathered by the sun and a confident gaze. "Jasmine," he said, his voice husky, "is that you? You look different." Jasmine felt a wave of contradictory emotions, rage, pain, and a hint of the old foolishness she had felt for him. She squeezed the hand of Finn, who was hiding behind her. "What are you doing here, Lachlan?" Jasmine asked, her voice firmer than she felt. "How did you find me?" Lachlan ran a hand through his hair. "It wasn't easy. I went to your house, your father's. It was empty, abandoned. I asked around the town. They told me your father had died and that Trish had run off with a traveling salesman." So her father had died. Jasmine absorbed the news. She felt a pang of sadness, but it was brief. That chapter was already closed. "And what do you want? Did you come to rub your good life in my face? The rumors were that you were in Perth with another woman," Jasmine said with bitterness. Lachlan looked down, ashamed. "The rumors were true at first, but she wasn't you, Jasmine. And I was a coward." "Yes, you were," Jasmine said. "You were a coward and a liar. You abandoned me. You abandoned your son." At that moment, Finn peered out. Lachlan saw him. His eyes widened. Is that him? Is that my son?" He knelt down, trying to get a better look. "My God, he's just like me." "He's called Finn," Jasmine said, placing a protective hand on her son's shoulder. "What do you want, Lachlan? If you've come to ask for money, I don't have any. The little I have, I've earned with the sweat of my brow." Lachlan shook his head, his eyes full of tears. "No, Jasmine, I didn't come to ask for money. I came to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I know I let you down." He stood up, but didn't come any closer. "I made a lot of mistakes, Jasmine. I went up north. I was dazzled by the money, by that woman. But it all went wrong. She left me. I lost my job. I was deported a month ago. I came back here thinking maybe I'd still be the idiot who would wait for you," Jasmine completed, her voice icy. Lachlan flinched at the coldness of her voice. "No. Well, yes, I don't know. I was desperate. I just wanted to see you and meet him," he said, gesturing to Finn. Cheryl and Barry came out onto the veranda, alerted by the voices. Barry carried a small bush knife in his hand just in case. "Who is this, Jasmine?" "It's Lachlan," Jasmine said, without taking her eyes off the man who had broken her heart, Finn's father. Cheryl and Barry exchanged a grim look. Barry stood beside Jasmine. His presence was a silent warning. "You better leave, mate," Barry said. "You're not welcome here. You've done enough damage to this family already." "Please," Lachlan pleaded, now addressing them. "I just want to talk to her. He's my son." "You had 7 years to claim that son," Cheryl said, her voice sharp. 7 years that Jasmine struggled alone. 7 years that this child grew up without a father. You have no right. The only father he knows is this one," she said, pointing to Barry. Finn, sensing the tension, hugged Barry's leg. Lachlan saw that scene. Finn seeking protection from another man was like a punch to the gut. He saw the family he had lost. He saw the strong woman Jasmine had become, protected by these two older people. He saw that he had no place there. "Jasmine," he whispered, his last hope fading. "Tell me something. Tell me you hate me. Tell me to leave, but tell me something." Jasmine looked at him for a long time. She saw the man she had loved, but now she only saw a stranger, a pathetic stranger. "I don't hate you, Lachlan," she finally said, and her voice surprised everyone, even herself. "I feel nothing for you. Hatred requires energy, and you don't deserve one more second of my energy. What I feel is pity. Pity for the weak man you are. Pity for everything you missed out on." She knelt down and looked at Finn. "My love, this man is your biological father, the one who gave you life." Finn looked at Lachlan with curiosity but without emotion. Then he looked at Barry. "My dad is Grandpa Baza," he said confidently. Jasmine smiled. "Yes, my love, you're right." She stood up and looked at Lachlan. "You heard the boy. We have nothing more to talk about. Go, Lachlan, and don't come back." Lachlan stood paralyzed. He expected shouts, tears, reproaches. He didn't expect indifference. That indifference was worse than any slap. He realized he had lost her forever. There was nothing he could do, nothing he could say. He nodded slowly, tears falling down his face. "Look after yourself, Jasmine. Look after him." He got into his car and drove away down the same dusty track he had arrived on. Jasmine watched him go until the car disappeared. She felt neither relief nor victory. She only felt peace. The last ghost of her past was gone. She turned to Cheryl and Barry. "Thank you," she said. Barry put away the bush knife. "You're welcome, love. Let's go inside. Dinner's getting cold." They walked into the house, the three of them together, with Finn running ahead. Jasmine's true family was complete. Lachlan's departure left a strange silence on the farm. It wasn't a sad silence, but a thoughtful one. That night at dinner, no one mentioned his name. They talked about the weather, the price of corn, and how Finn needed new school shoes. It was as if they had collectively closed the last door to Jasmine's past. She felt incredibly light. She realized that Lachlan's return hadn't been a threat, but a gift. It had allowed her to see, once and for all, that she was no longer the girl he had abandoned. The following years settled into a happy routine. Finn grew up healthy and strong. He was the light of the farm. He proved to be a noble child, with Cheryl's kind heart and Barry's stubborn work ethic. To him, Barry was his hero. He spent the afternoons helping his grandpa fix the tractor or feed the animals. "When I grow up, I'm going to be just like you, Grandpa Baza," he told him one day while trying to lift a bucket too heavy for him. Barry, who rarely showed his emotions, stopped and ruffled his hair. "You'll be better than me, mate. You'll be a good man. Your mother's making sure of that." Jasmine, watching them from the kitchen, smiled. Her heart was full. She had achieved her goal. She was raising a good man. Cheryl, for her part, taught Finn to read stories and to respect the land. "Never forget, Finn, the land gives us everything. If you look after it, it will look after you," she would tell him. Jasmine continued to work tirelessly. Her savings, which she had used to help her dying father, grew again, this time faster. With her new position as partner, her earnings increased. Barry and Cheryl insisted that she manage the farm's finances. "You've got a better head for numbers than the two of us put together, Darl," Barry admitted. Jasmine opened a savings account at the town bank. She no longer kept the money in a metal box. One afternoon, Cheryl called her onto the veranda. She was pale. "Jasmine, love, Barry and I have been talking." Jasmine worried. "Is something wrong, Nan? Are you sick?" Cheryl shook her head, but her eyes were teary. "No, my dear. We're just getting old, that's all, and we're tired. This farm is too much work for us." Jasmine's heart began to pound. "Do you want to sell? Do you have to leave?" "Barry and I don't have much time left," Cheryl continued, taking Jasmine's hands. "Our kids made their lives in the city. They never wanted this, but you've been the real daughter of this land, you and Finn." Jasmine didn't understand what Cheryl was getting at. "Nan, you're scaring me." Cheryl smiled through her tears. "Don't be scared. What we want to say is that we want this farm to be yours and Finn's. We've been to the solicitor. Barry and I have decided to leave you this house, this land, as your inheritance. You don't have to pay us anything. You've already paid for it with 7 years of love and hard work. It's your home, Jasmine, legally." Jasmine was speechless. Cheryl's words took a moment to process. "What? No, Cheryl, I can't accept that. It's too much. It's all you have." Jasmine was overwhelmed. She had dreamed of a small plot of land, not inheriting the entire farm that had saved her. It's your children's inheritance. Our children have their own houses, their jobs. They never cared about the farm," Barry said, coming out onto the veranda. His voice was firm. "They would come and sell this to the first developer who offered them a few bucks. This land is our life, and you're the only one who values it. You looked after it, you made it bloom again. It's not a gift, Jasmine, it's justice. We want our home to stay in the hands of someone who loves it, and that's you." "But," Jasmine stammered, tears streaming down her cheeks, "it's not fair to you. I owe you everything." "We owe you, Darl," Cheryl said softly. "You brought life back to us. You gave us a grandson. Finn is the son we lost when ours left. You looked after us. Who do you think would have looked after us in our old age if you weren't here? Please, God put you on that track to save us, just as we saved you." Jasmine hugged them both, crying openly. She cried for the kindness of this couple. She cried for the irony of life. The family that had discarded her for a miserable inheritance had lost it, and the family that had taken her in from nothing was giving her their whole world. "I don't know what to say. Thank you. Thank you, Nan. Thank you, Grandpa Baza. I swear I'll look after this land. I'll look after you until your last days." "We know you will," Barry said, giving her a clumsy pat on the back. "Now stop crying. We have to celebrate. I think there's a drop of that Bundaberg rum we keep for special occasions left." That night they dined together, not as a boss and her employees, nor as a refugee and her saviors, but as a family. For the first time, Jasmine felt her roots were firmly planted in the earth. She was no longer drifting. The news of the inheritance changed something fundamental in Jasmine. She no longer worked out of fear of the future, but with the security of someone building on their own foundation. She began to make plans. She wanted to expand the chook run, maybe buy another milking cow. She wanted to repair the barn roof before the wet season. She wanted to paint the house, maybe a bright blue like the one she remembered from her childhood. But this time, it would be a happy blue. Life became a series of small triumphs. Finn won his first spelling bee at school. Jasmine managed to sell a large order of cheeses to a city restaurant. Barry, although slower, continued to teach Finn the secrets of the field. Cheryl taught Jasmine to embroider tablecloths, a tradition she had learned from her own grandmother. They were a family in every sense of the word, united not by blood but by something much stronger, choice and love. Another 3 years passed. Finn was 10 years old. He was a responsible, kind boy who helped his mother and his adoptive grandparents without complaining. Cheryl and Barry aged gracefully, but their bodies began to fail. Barry could no longer work in the fields. His hands, deformed by arthritis, could barely hold a mug. Cheryl spent most of the day sitting on the veranda, her sight failing. Jasmine became the primary caregiver for both of them, in addition to running the farm. She did it without resentment, with absolute devotion. She prepared their meals, administered their medicines, and read to them at night. "You're paying for this house many times over, love," Barry told her one night as she adjusted his pillows. "I'm not paying for anything, Grandpa Baza," she replied softly. "I'm looking after my family. It's what we do." One morning, Cheryl didn't wake up. She left silently in her sleep, with a peaceful smile on her face. The pain was immense. Jasmine felt as if she had lost her true mother. Finn cried for days. Barry remained silent, sitting in Cheryl's empty chair on the veranda, looking at the horizon. Jasmine had to be the strong one for everyone. She organized the funeral, received the few neighbors who came to offer condolences, and kept the farm running. Cheryl's absence left a huge void. The house seemed too quiet. Barry, without his companion of 60 years, seemed to wither. "My anchor's gone, Jasmine," he confessed one afternoon, his voice broken. "Now I'm adrift." Jasmine sat at his feet and rested her head on his knees. "You're not adrift, Baza. I'm here. Finn is here. We're your anchor now." Jasmine took on the role of matriarch of the family. She not only looked after Barry and Finn, but made all the decisions for the farm. She had become a shrewd businesswoman. She had saved enough money, not only from her earnings, but also from the money Lachlan had offered her. He had tried to send her money several times as a form of penance. She refused it at first, but Cheryl convinced her. "That money isn't for you, Jasmine. It's for Finn," Cheryl wisely told her. "It's the least that coward can do for his son. Take it. Save it for Finn's education. Let his abandonment serve for something good." So Jasmine accepted the money, which arrived punctually every month, and put it into a separate account for her son's studies. Lachlan never reappeared. He only sent the money, a phantom transaction. Barry lived 2 more years after Cheryl's death. Jasmine dedicated those 2 years entirely to him. She cared for him with infinite tenderness. He told her stories of his youth, how he met Cheryl, of the children who left. "You are my real daughter, Jasmine," he told her on his last day, squeezing her hand. "The daughter God sent me late, but just in time." He died that night, in his own bed with Jasmine holding his hand. Jasmine and Finn were left alone on the farm. The silence after the second funeral was even heavier. Now, the house and the land were officially theirs, but the price had been losing the 2 people who had given her a second chance at life. Finn, now 12, understood death. He hugged his mother. "We're alone now, Mum," he whispered. Jasmine hugged him tightly. "We're not alone, my love. We have each other. And they'll always be here," she said, pointing to her heart. The first few months were the hardest. Jasmine had to manage everything alone. The physical work, the finances, raising a preteen. There were days when she felt overwhelmed, days when she sat on the veranda and cried, missing Cheryl's wisdom or Barry's silent support. But then she would look at Finn, who tried hard to help her, and she would find the strength to continue. One day, a man came to the farm. It was Cheryl and Barry's eldest son. He came from the city wearing a suit. His name was Brad, the same name as the cot Finn had slept in. Jasmine shivered. Had he come to claim the inheritance? "Ma'am," he said, not recognizing her. "I'm looking for my parents. I heard my father passed away. I couldn't make it to the funeral." "I'm Jasmine," she said calmly. "Your parents gave me shelter many years ago. I looked after them until the end." Brad looked at her with a mix of confusion and shame. "Yes, my father mentioned something in his last letter, said a good woman was looking after him." He went into the house. He saw that it was clean, well cared for. He saw the fresh flowers in a vase where his mother used to sit. "They left this to me," Jasmine said, her voice firm, though she feared the confrontation. "They left the farm to me and my son." Brad was silent for a long time. Jasmine prepared the papers the solicitor had given her. "Here's the will." Brad looked at the papers. Then he looked at her. "My parents were good to you." "They were my saviors," Jasmine said, "and I tried to be a good daughter to them." Brad nodded slowly. "I never wanted this land. It was always my father's dream, not mine. I'm glad it went to someone who values it, and thank you for looking after them. We weren't here." He stayed for a while. He visited his parents' graves in the small-town cemetery and then left. That encounter closed the last loose end. The land was hers, without debts, without claims. Jasmine felt she could finally breathe. That night she sat with Finn on the veranda, in Cheryl and Barry's rocking chairs. "It's ours, Finn. All of this is ours. We'll work hard and we'll get ahead. You'll have the education I didn't have. You'll have every opportunity." Finn hugged her. "We're already doing it, Mum." The years passed. The farm, under Jasmine's management, became a model of modest prosperity. She didn't become rich, but she lived comfortably. She hired a couple of helpers from the town, good people whom she treated with the same respect Cheryl and Barry had taught her. She earned a reputation in the region as Auntie Jazz, a fair, strong, hard-working woman. No one remembered the pregnant girl who had walked down the dirt track. Finn grew into a tall, handsome young man. He inherited Lachlan's smile, but he had Jasmine's firm, honest gaze. He was his mother's pride. He was the best student in his school, and thanks to the money Lachlan had sent and Jasmine's savings, he prepared to go to university in the city. He wanted to be an agricultural engineer. "I want to learn new techniques, Mum," he told her, "to make the farm produce even more, to honor what Nan and Grandpa Baza built." The day Finn left for the city was one of the hardest for Jasmine. She accompanied him to the bus station. As she watched him climb aboard, she felt the same panic she had felt the night he was born. Would he be all right alone? Would the world be kind to him? Finn turned before getting on. "Don't cry, Mum. I'll be back on the weekend and I'll call you every night." He hugged her tight. "Thanks for everything. You're the best mum in the world." Jasmine returned to the farm. The house felt empty and silent, like when Cheryl and Barry died. For the first time in many years, Jasmine was truly alone. She sat on the veranda that night feeling the weight of her 40 years. She had spent her entire life looking after someone, her half-siblings, her father, Finn, Cheryl, Barry. And now there was no one to look after except herself. At first, the loneliness was hard, but gradually, Jasmine discovered something new. Time for herself. She rediscovered her love for the embroidery that Cheryl had taught her. She started reading the books Cheryl kept in an old trunk. She began to take Sunday afternoons off simply to walk around the fields on her land, feeling the wind on her face. She realized that her value didn't just come from being a mother or a caregiver or a worker. Her value came from who she was, from the woman who had survived everything. She began to feel at peace with her solitude. It wasn't an emptiness, it was a space to breathe. She continued to manage the farm with a firm hand, but she found a new balance in her life. She looked in the mirror. The lines around her eyes told her story. They were marks of worry, yes, but also of laughter. They were marks of tears, but also of determination. She no longer saw the scared girl. She saw Auntie Jazz, a complete woman, a woman who had saved herself. One day, while she was at the market selling her produce, a man approached her stall. He was a man her age, with a kind face and calloused hands marked by work. He bought cheese and eggs and asked her questions about her cultivation methods. He introduced himself as Darren, a widower who had a small sheep farm on the other side of the valley. No, not Cheryl's son, but another Darren. Darren began to frequent her stall every week. They talked about prices, the weather, the drought. Their conversations were easy, respectful. There was no flirting, only the mutual recognition of two people who understood the land. One day, Darren invited her for a coffee at the small restaurant in the square. "Just to talk business, Auntie Jazz," he said, a little nervous. "I hear you know a lot about management." Jasmine hesitated. It had been more than 20 years since she had sat alone with a man who wasn't Barry. The ghost of Lachlan had cast a long shadow. But she looked at Darren. She saw his honest gaze, his shy smile. She saw no danger. She saw kindness. All right, Darren, I accept, but just a quick coffee. I have to get back to the farm. That quick coffee turned into an hour. They talked about their lives. He told her he had lost his wife to an illness 3 years ago. He told her about his 2 daughters, already married and living far away. He told her about the loneliness of his farm. Jasmine, surprisingly, found herself talking about her life. She spoke of Finn, of Cheryl and Barry. She didn't mention Lachlan or her father. There was no need. That was a dead past. They began to see each other more often. Sometimes at the market, sometimes he would visit her on the farm under the pretext of buying seeds. They would sit on the veranda, in the rocking chairs, and talk for hours. Finn, who came home on weekends, met him. "He's a good bloke, Mum," Finn told her, with the wisdom of his 19 years. "Do you like him?" Jasmine blushed, something she hadn't done in decades. He's a friend, Finn, just a friend." But in her heart, she felt something more, a warmth that wasn't just friendship. It was companionship. It was the comfort of being with someone who understood her world, who didn't ask anything of her, who simply enjoyed her company. Darren never tried to cross the line. He was a gentleman. One sunset, as they watched the sun dip below the hills, Darren took her hand. His hand was rough, like Barry's, like hers. "Jasmine," he said quietly, "I know you've had a tough life, and I've had mine. We're not young. We're not looking for fireworks, but I feel very lonely. And I think you do too. If you allow me, I would like to court you. The old-fashioned way, with respect." Jasmine looked at him. The sincerity in his eyes disarmed her. She had spent her entire adult life convinced she would never trust a man again. But Darren wasn't Lachlan. Darren was real. He was kind. And yes, she felt lonely. She nodded slowly. "I would like that, Darren, with respect, and slowly, very slowly." Darren smiled, a smile that lit up his face. "All the time in the world, Jasmine. All the time in the world." Jasmine and Darren's relationship blossomed slowly, like the plants they cared for. It was an autumn love, quiet, mature, and strong. It wasn't based on passionate promises or unrealistic dreams, but on shared realities. They supported each other. When a pest threatened Jasmine's crops, Darren spent a week helping her fight it. When Darren's flock needed shearing, Jasmine organized her workers to help. They became partners. Finn, initially protective of his mother, fully accepted Darren when he saw the genuine happiness on Jasmine's face. "You deserve to be happy, Mum. You've suffered enough," he told her during one of his visits. "Darren's a good bloke and he cooks an amazing lamb stew," he joked. Jasmine laughed. It had been a long time since she had laughed that way. 2 years later, in a simple ceremony on the farm's veranda, surrounded only by Finn and a few neighbors, Jasmine and Darren got married. Jasmine wore a simple cream dress she had embroidered herself. Darren wore his best shirt. There was no big party, just a quiet dinner under the stars. It was the happiest day of Jasmine's life. Darren didn't move to Jasmine's farm, nor did she move to his. They decided to keep both places. "You're the queen of your land and I'm the king of mine," Darren said. "But we can visit each other and be kings together." They spent half the week at one farm and half at the other. It worked for them. They found a perfect balance between companionship and independence. Jasmine, for the first time, experienced what it was like to be in a relationship of equals. A man who didn't abandon her, who didn't despise her, who didn't take her for granted. A man who admired her for her strength and cared for her with tenderness. She realized that Lachlan hadn't ruined her life. He had just given her a painful detour, a detour that led her to Cheryl and Barry, led her to Finn, and finally led her to herself. One day, while cleaning out an old cupboard that had belonged to Cheryl, she found a small wooden box. Inside, there was a faded photo of Cheryl and Barry when they were young and a small lock of blonde hair tied with a ribbon. Jasmine never knew whose hair it was, perhaps one of their children's, but it reminded her of the deep history of love and loss that had sustained that house. She and Darren continued to honor Cheryl and Barry's memory. They maintained Cheryl's tradition of always leaving a light on the veranda at night. "For any lost traveler," Jasmine would say, repeating her Savior's words, "so they know this door is never closed to anyone who needs it." Finn graduated from university with honors. His graduation photo took pride of place on the lounge wall. Jasmine and Darren were there, clapping louder than anyone. Finn returned to the farm, just as he had promised, but he didn't return alone. He brought with him a sweet, smart young woman named Chloe, a university classmate who shared his passion for the land. Jasmine watched her son look at Chloe and recognized the look. It was true love, but it was different from the blind love she had felt for Lachlan. It was a love based on mutual respect, on shared dreams. Chloe was from the city, but she was eager to learn about farm life. She reminded Jasmine of herself when she first arrived at the farm, hungry to learn and to belong. Darren joked that the house was filling up again. Jasmine was delighted. Chloe's laughter brought a new energy to the farm. Finn and Chloe began to implement new ideas, a drip irrigation system, solar panels on the barn roof. The farm prospered even more, becoming a model for sustainable agriculture in the region. Jasmine, now in her mid-40s, began to take a step back. She let Finn and Chloe take the reins of the business. She and Darren dedicated themselves to enjoying their golden years, as Darren called them. They traveled to nearby towns they had never had time to visit. They spent long afternoons on the veranda, just talking or sometimes in comfortable silence. One day, Jasmine and Finn walked to the old dirt track. She hadn't been there in years. The main road now ran closer, and the old track was almost covered with weeds. They stopped at the approximate spot where she had collapsed in the ditch, where Cheryl and Barry had found her. "This is where it was," Jasmine said softly. "This is where you were born again, Mom." "This is where we were both born, my love," she corrected him. She looked at the desolate track, but she no longer felt the terror of that night. She only felt gratitude. "It's strange, Finn. The worst day of my life was also the best. That day I lost everything. But if I hadn't lost everything, I would never have found what really mattered. I would never have had you. I would never have met Cheryl and Barry. I would never have met Darren." "Life is strange, Mum," Finn said, putting his arm around her shoulders. "It's tough, but it's also good." "Yes, my love," Jasmine said, resting her head on her son's chest, now a grown man. "It's very good." They stood there for a while, mother and son, looking at the track that had been the beginning of everything. Jasmine's life found a peace she never thought possible. She saw Finn marry Chloe on that same veranda where she had married Darren. She saw the birth of her first granddaughter, a beautiful girl they named Cheryl, in honor of the woman who had saved the family. Jasmine, now a grandmother, felt the circle of life was complete. She held the baby in her arms, in the same rocking chair where Cheryl had comforted her. The farm was more alive than ever. It was a home full of laughter, hard work, and love. Jasmine became the undisputed matriarch, Grandma Jaz, known for her wisdom and her strength. Darren, by her side, was the indulgent grandfather, always with a lolly in his pocket for his granddaughter. They were the picture of quiet happiness. Jasmine never forgot her past. She didn't erase it, but it no longer defined her. The scars were there, but they no longer hurt. They were a reminder of the strength she had discovered within herself. Her father's betrayal, Trish's cruelty, Lachlan's abandonment, all of that had faded, replaced by the family she had built. One afternoon, as the sun was setting, Jasmine was sitting alone on the veranda. She was 60 years old. Her hair was completely white, but her eyes were still bright. She looked at her lands, green and prosperous. She listened to her granddaughter's laughter playing in the yard with Finn. Darren approached and put a blanket over her legs. "It's getting cold, my love," he said. "I'm not cold, Darren," she replied, taking his hand. "I feel warm inside." He sat beside her. They sat in silence, watching the sunset. Jasmine thought of the 19-year-old girl, pregnant and alone, walking down a dirt track. She wanted to tell her something. She wanted to tell her that everything would be all right, that the pain would pass. She wanted to tell her that she would be strong, that she would find love, that she would build a home. She wanted to tell her that the baby in her womb would be her greatest pride, that life, despite its cruel beginnings, had unimaginable happiness prepared for her. She closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of Darren's hand, and smiled. It had been a long, difficult journey, but every step had been worth it. Jasmine's story is not a story of great wealth or world fame. It's a much more important story. It is the story of human resilience. It is proof that the worst day of your life can be the start of your best chapter. It teaches us that family is not always the blood we share, but the hands that lift us when we fall, the doors that open when all others close. Jasmine was abandoned by those who should have loved her, but she found a home in the hearts of strangers. She transformed her pain into strength, her fear into determination, and her loneliness into a beautiful family. She went from being a victim on a dusty track to being the owner of her own destiny, a beloved and respected matriarch. She proved that no matter how dark the beginning, we can always choose how our story ends. Life gave Jasmine a second chance, and she turned it into a legacy of love. If this story has moved you, if you believe in the power of overcoming adversity, please comment the word resilience. And if you want to see more emotional stories like this, stories that remind us that even in the deepest darkness, there is always a light waiting to be found,